Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to WordCamp 2018's final presentation for the weekend, room 1. Our speaker for the final talk is Justin Wu. 6 different ways of deploying WordPress into Azure. So, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the last session of WordCamp Sydney. So I'm pretty sure you might be exhausted, but I'm pretty enjoying the yesterday and today. I'm going to talk about the deploying the WordPress into Azure in 6 different ways. So my name is Justin from the Maxia as a senior consultant, and I am double awarded Microsoft MVP, and these are all my the social media profile. So if you like, you can follow me on Twitter or WordPress or LinkedIn. So before starting, I'd like to ask a few questions. So so where do you deploy your WordPress website for your personal purpose or the work purpose? So anyone using the web hosting company like the GoDaddy or HostGator or Bluehost? Okay. What about the web server on-prem which is behind the firewall for your corporate use? Okay. What about the public cloud, such as AWS? Okay. The Google or Azure? No one. I knew it. So Azure is not that popular. How interesting. Throughout this session, but I'm going to use Azure Public Cloud to host the WordPress website onto Azure on the cloud. So there are more than 50 the locations from all around the world to host the web applications, including WordPress. And these are the 4 regions in Australia. So one in Sydney, one in Melbourne, and the other 2 is in Canberra. So based on or depending on your business requirements, we can deploy our WordPress website anywhere in the world, including Australia. So there are actually many different ways deploying WordPress into Azure Cloud, but these 6 ways are most distinctive ways. So we can cover this up. Now, before starting, I'd like to review these diagrams. First of all, the way of deployment. We can use a virtual machine. So we can use a virtual machine to deploy the WordPress applications. But in order to use virtual machines, we need to deploy a virtual machine image. We need to deploy the network. We need to deploy IP address, etc., etc. Right? So these kind of things are all done by ourselves. And this is actually not about application itself. It's all about the infrastructure side. Right? So this is often called as infrastructure as a service or IaaS. Right? So if we use this approach, then we have all the control on us, but it's less convenient. So think about this container approach. So we can call it as a container as a service or CaaS. Then we don't have to worry about the server maintenance, right? So public cloud, the cloud service provider offers a server environment. On top of that, we are just using containers to host our applications, including WordPress, right? In this case, we don't have to worry about the server maintenance, which is more convenient than before. Now, this is my favorite part, actually. And this is the PaaS, stands for Platform as a Service. Right? And in this case, we don't have to actually worry about any server maintenance. We don't have to worry about scaling. We don't have to worry about the version upgrading or security issues, whatever. Right? Because cloud service provider has all the maintenance issue. They do all the dirty jobs. We only focus on the code itself. So we only focus on our business logic, business operation, and WordPress code itself. Right? So using PaaS, the downside of that, we don't have any control on that, but the more convenient. So that's the different side of the IaaS and PaaS. So think about this. Also, there is another approach. I can call it a hybrid approach, but it actually takes benefits from CaaS and PaaS. So we will discuss it later. Now, think about the virtual machine approach, which is referred as IaaS. So in order to use the virtual machine, we need to have the virtual machine image. So Microsoft provides predefined virtual machine image, which can be the Windows or Linux, or even in Linux, we can choose the Ubuntu or SUSE or CentOS, whatever, right? Or even they have a predefined WordPress image on top of running the Linux box, right? So we can simply use the WordPress image to deploy a virtual machine on that. So let's have a look at this video. So I'm going to create a virtual machine. So, but as I said, there is the WordPress pre-installed virtual machine image. So we can simply choose a WordPress 4.9.7 and create the virtual machine. And we give it a name of the virtual machine, like this. Now, because this is a server, so we need to provide the server username, admin username, like this. And we can choose either SSH key or password to access to the server. So and in this demo, we just simply use a password approach. But if you prefer using SSH key, and then we can use that. Now, we choose the resource group and the location, like this. And this is a basic the setup. Now we need to choose the virtual machine size. So this in this demo, we just use the smallest one to avoid any cost damage. Now, so all the setup is done, but we still need to set up any sort of networking issue or virtual network or IP address whatsoever. So these are all default. I just put it as a default now. So all setup is done. Then we are waiting for the validation and see the cost evaluation. And once it is ready, and we can create the virtual machine image. So once it's done, we can actually see how the WordPress website will be looking like. So let's have a look. So in this case, we are using virtual machine image, right? So we have set up code, virtual machine, and networking, right? Which is huge to me, actually. So we have the DNS name. So we copy it and open another browser and run the predefined WordPress website like this. So because that virtual machine has already installed the WordPress image, we can use that like this. The problem of using the virtual machine is, as I said, we have to set up everything by ourselves, including the SSL, the certificate, something like that. So if we want to run our WordPress website, we need to, in a secure way, we need to enable the HTTPS connection, which is not enabled by default. So we need to manually enable it. Also, we need to install the SSL certificate onto the virtual machine, which is, to me, is a huge, huge cost, right? We have to spend a lot of time to figure that out. Now, let's move on to another service the approach. Now, the Azure container instance, which is about using the CaaS approach. So in this case, as I mentioned, we don't need to manage the server, right? Because the server is already provided by the Azure, and we don't need to worry about the maintenance there. On top of that server, we only use container image, which is WordPress has official the container image on Docker Hub, so we can just simply pull that container image onto that service. So let's have a look. So in this video, I'm going to create the Azure container instance. And within the container instance, I will pull out the WordPress image. Right? So we create, and we give it a container name, and we are referring the public Docker Hub image, like WordPress, the latest version of WordPress. Then we choose the resource group, then choose the location. When I take this video, Australian region was not enabled. Now Australia has offering this container instance, so we can simply use that. Also, we need to give the DNS name, which we can access from outside, because it is a public the container. Now, so all the setup is done, and if we click OK, and it will create the container instance. So once it is ready, we will see how the WordPress website is running. So when you click that, it goes into the container instance. So we put the fully qualified domain name here, WCS 2018 or something like that. So because this is container itself is not a web server, right? We just pull the website image. So the FQDN is not about the website. So, but this we pull the image as the web server, so we can run that container as a the website. Now we use Azure portal to create the container instance only for single, but on the Azure portal only support a single container scenario. So if you want to use multiple container scenarios, then probably the Azure portal doesn't support that scenario. In that case, we need to use ARM template, which stands for Azure Resource Manager template. So as I said, the official WordPress image doesn't support HTTPS connection by default, right? So in this case, we have to enable the HTTPS connection by modifying or customizing the official the WordPress image. Or you might be thinking of if we can use the container the technology, how can we use container orchestration or scaling, something like that. Azure service instance, Azure container instance doesn't support it. Instead, if we want to use clustering or orchestration or scaling, something like that, and think about the Azure Kubernetes service. I'm not covering this topic in here. Also, now we are using Azure App Service instance, right? So which is the platform as a service. So as I said, it's my favorite, and the reason why I like this most is I don't have to worry about any server maintenance. I don't have to worry about any scaling. I don't have to worry about anything but code. So I can choose either Windows or Linux box as an operating system. Actually, I run several the WordPress website running on Windows, so I have no problem at all so far. Also, this is a PaaS, right? So it provides, we can choose a runtime. So PHP 5.6 or 7 or 7.2 as a default runtime provided. So if we want to run different version of the PHP runtime, probably this is not going to be working. Then we can choose another approach. I will talk this later. As I said, it supports auto-scaling, which means if we want to scaling out using virtual machine approach, we have to install another virtual machine. We have to install another virtual machine depending on the traffic, right? If we want to use container approach, we need to install another node, right, for scaling. But if we are using PaaS approach, actually, when the traffic goes in, traffic is too heavy, it automatically scales out. When the traffic is down, it automatically scales in. So that kind of a scaling issue is actually I'm free from those kind of scaling concern. Also, the SLA of the web app service instance is 99.95%. So which means about less than 10 minutes a year of outage. So, but if you still want to higher availability, then think about the Azure Kubernetes service or Azure Service Fabric. Also, the Azure PaaS, the supports continuous deployment. So it can nicely integrate it with your Git repository or Mercurial repository, right? Which can be hosted in Bitbucket or GitHub or your internal the Git server. Yeah, it can be smoothly integrated with your source code repository. Right? So let's have a look. This is the small video of how we can deploy the WordPress website to Azure App Service. Now, we are giving a name onto the Azure Web Service, and this will be the default name of the website. And we provide a resource name, and this time I'm going to use a Linux box. Now, we can choose either the PHP version, so I'm going to choose PHP 7.2 now, and just creating it. Right? So comparing to the previously we deployed the virtual machine approach, we set up all the things, right? But in here we just use the deployment approach is very simplified. Now we have a web app, but in this web app we don't have any WordPress deployed yet. Now we are integrating the source code repository using GitHub, and WordPress has also the public repository on GitHub. So we choose WordPress and install it. So it's integrated with the WordPress repository now. So when you go there and it's not deployed yet, now if we click the sync button, then it pulls all the data from the latest code from the GitHub repository and deploy it, right? So if we change this repository to our own thing, right? And whenever we push the commit into the GitHub, then it automatically picks that change and deploy it into Azure. So this is done. Then when you click on the website, and we can see how they quickly deploy the WordPress application onto the Azure web app. And it also has the problem, which means because it's a PaaS, right? PaaS means the cloud service provider has all the server maintenance, which means our application has a dependency on the vendor, right? So it's a vendor-specific dependency. So if we want to migrate our WordPress application into different cloud service provider like AWS, or if we want to migrate this application into our on-prem web server, we probably need to slight modification, right, because of that vendor dependency. So in order to avoid or overcome that vendor dependency, probably we might need to change some packaging, right? So in this case, we can use container. So the way of the packaging is just use the normal artifact to the container packaging. I can call it as a hybrid approach, but it's basically on PaaS, right? And it's using single container. So it takes benefits from PaaS, which means we don't have to worry about server maintenance, we don't have to worry about scaling, all sorts of things. And also, we can take benefits from CaaS, which is container the packaging. Now, let's have a look at this short video. We are creating another web app instance. using the single container. So this time, let's have a look. This time, yeah, we are giving it a different name for this web application. Then there is the OS choice at the bottom. So instead of using Windows or Linux, we choose the Docker. Then we choose a single container. And that container comes from Docker Hub, which is WordPress.WordPress:latest, which is the official the Docker instance, Docker container image by WordPress. So yeah, it's actually basically it. And when we set this up, and yeah, application will be deployed straight away. So once it is deployed, then go to the web application. It has, we create the container web application like this. And go into there. And there is the URL. And if we click that application, now we can see the website, right? The problem is that this is the single container scenario. So if we want to if we have multiple containers for our development purpose, right? And this scenario doesn't fit. In this case, we can use Docker Compose as for the multi-container approach. So this is another the hybrid scenario. So yeah, so we can use multiple containers on using the Docker container, right? So for example, what can we do as a multiple container approach? For example, let's think about that. If we are developing the themes or plugins, right? So instead of directly modifying the WordPress, the code base itself, we can create another container only for themes, another container for only for plugins, right? And then we can combine all together and host it into the web service as a web app. Or for your quickly testing purpose, we can simply add MySQL database like this. So I define the MySQL database at the top and define the WordPress the container at the bottom. So we can combine this kind of this scenario as well. But this is not secure, so this is only used for your testing. So yeah, so let's have a look at this video. So as I said, we are still using the PaaS as a web app instance like this. But this time, instead of using the single container approach, we are using Docker Compose format. Right? So yeah, choose the web application name and choose the Docker. Then instead of choosing a single container, this time we are using Docker Compose. Then I have predefined Docker Compose the YAML file and upload it. Right? Now we have all the definition uploaded like this, which I showed before, and then create it. Right? So in this case, this web app has a particularly having the basic WordPress website and MySQL database integrated. So don't do it for your production purpose. Now, so the web app is created now. So this time we might be seeing a different result because we installed two different the server at one instance. So let's have a look. So when we click this website, now we can see the different one because it's already database connection string has been provided, right? So this is how we can handle multiple containers in one single the web app instance. Now, there are another type of multiple container scenario. We can use the Kubernetes pod file. Right? This is unlike the Docker Compose, we can also use Kubernetes pod. Yeah. So the basic idea is the same as the Docker Compose, right? It uses the multi-container support, but the file format is different. That's the only difference. Yeah, this is the pod format. But to make sure that we are not using the full Kubernetes features here, we only take benefit of using the pod file itself. Right? So yeah, as I mentioned early before, if we want to fully use Kubernetes feature, consider the Azure Kubernetes service. Now, have a look at this video. So we create another web app for to use the Kubernetes pod file. So give it a name again. And yeah, this time we are choosing Docker. And in the last tab, which is Kubernetes, and provide the pod file. So I have already defined, as I showed before, the pod format, and it defines the WordPress image only at this stage. So we create it. So the web app is being deployed now. Once it's deployed, actually we can see not much differences from the previous deployment. But we are using a different approach, which is it depends on your the business requirements. If you have already the Kubernetes definition file, then we can use this approach. If we have Docker Compose file, then we can use the previous approach, something like this. Right? So we can see the WordPress has been installed using the different multi-container scenario. So this is not the Kubernetes clustering, right? So if we want to run the clustering scenario, as I said, then we can use the Azure Kubernetes service or Azure Service Fabric. Now, it's almost there. So throughout this session, I showed you 6 different ways of deploying the WordPress website into Azure. From the IaaS using the virtual machine approach, then the container instances, then the rest 4 is using the Azure PaaS, and the rest 3 is a different packaging using the single container, using Docker Compose for multi-container, using the Kubernetes pod for the multi-containers. Right? So it really depends on your business scenario. So if I am asked to choose one of those 6 approach, I will definitely go to one of those 4 PaaS approach, depending. But if I just want to stick on Azure, I will choose the number 3. But if I am thinking of the future migration, something like that, then probably I can choose the rest of the 3 hybrid approach. Right? It depends on really scenarios. So, or if you want more control, rather than giving all the control to this cloud service provider, then probably choose the virtual machine image approach, something like this. So this is it from my session. Any questions?
Hi, thank you for that. How do you manage the file storage and other kind of persistent data that has to hang around between deployments? Because if you're using a repository-based pipeline, you're going to blow away whatever's there. Also, you've got to separate out theme files, uploading files, uploaded assets. How is that handled in the PaaS options?
Right. Your question is about how we can manage the existing contents files, something like the videos or images, something like that, right? Like most other the cloud service, the recommended way is including Azure or AWS. They recommend us to use a different the storage service. Like for example, Azure Azure provide the storage account, the blob storage, so we can set up to store any images or videos directly to there. So there is a plugin called the Azure Service WordPress plugin has to directly use the storage, blob storage, instead of directly using the file storage into the PaaS approach. So I'm pretty sure that also the Amazon has the S3 bucket account, so probably we can use that. But if that file has a kind of it's a part of the theme or plugin, then probably stick with that. But other contents-wise, I think I would recommend to use the blob storage. Is that the answer? Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
Any more questions? Well, thank you very much, Justin.
Yeah. Thank you for listening.